Dave, we are in an epic moment. We're celebrating the epic city of ideas. And one of the things we always think about is traveling into space. Is this possible? What is going on in that way?
I'm really excited to be able to share my epic journey to go to space. I helped build the International Space Station. I flew on the space shuttle twice. And I think looking at the future is very exciting. Thinking about leaving low Earth orbit, sending humans back to the moon and ultimately on to Mars. That's the epic human journey for us as a spacefaring species. But at the same time, we need to understand that the world that we live in is a beautiful place. 70% of the Earth is covered by water, and we have inner space, the undersea world, that we also have an opportunity to explore. So I'm thrilled to be here to talk about the epic journey of space and the undersea world and what it's like to live and work in these extreme, harsh environments.
How did you were already on space? Twice?
I was in space twice. I did 3 spacewalks, helped build the space station. And when you see the Earth from space, you realize what a beautiful place it is. There's no boundaries separating countries that are visible from space. We're all in this together.
What happened with God there?
You know, being in space, it's a very spiritual experience, and it makes one wonder. And you know, all the different religions of the world, I think, center around this concept of spirituality. And when we go to space, it's a very spiritual experience, realizing how humbling it is. You know, I look at my life in the context of cosmic time. If I live to be 70 or 80 years in the context of a planet that's 4.5 billion years old, you know, it really makes one wonder what this is all about.
Are you religious? Do you have any religion? Do you believe in any religion after being on space?
Well, I think many astronauts, they come back from space and feel more religious than they were before. For me, it's been a very spiritual experience, recognizing the humility of the human species and the fact that we have to protect our planet for future generations and that we're all in this together.
How does it feel to be walking on space? We see in movies and we see that it's incredible and it looks, how does it look? It didn't scare us at the beginning. You sit there and you say, what is going to happen? And I'm floating on the air.
So when you're in space and you're looking out the window of the space shuttle or the space station, it's an absolutely spectacular view, but you're still inside. You're inside a spacecraft. When you put on your spacesuit, which becomes your own spacecraft, you go out the airlock and you're working in the extreme harsh vacuum of space where temperatures range from -200 to over 200 degrees.
Wow.
And you look at the beauty of our planet, it's absolutely spectacular.
You talk about very nice experiences. When you are on the shuttle, when you are walking there, when you are on the space, is there any moment you were scared or there is a bad moment or something you want to tell us that it was like, wow, this was an experience different, not just walking there, a different experience that you said, wow.
Well, there's no question going to space is a scary experience, you know, and I think courage comes from doing things that you're afraid of doing, where you understand that there are risks associated with doing it. But you know, most astronauts, if you ask them, were you afraid when you were in space? They say, well, that got my attention, which is the code for saying, yes, I was actually scared at the time. So when I first did my spacewalks, the first spacewalk, it was a pretty scary experience. When you're sitting on top of 7.5 million pounds of rocket thrust, going from being stationary to traveling 25 times the speed of sound in 8.5 minutes, that's a pretty scary experience as well.
How fast?
25 times the speed of sound, that's 8 kilometers every second. You snap your fingers, the space shuttle's gone 8 kilometers, Soyuz spacecraft 8 kilometers, space station 8 kilometers. When I'm doing a spacewalk, relative to the Earth, I'm traveling 8 kilometers a second.
I think that we needed that, but in Mexico, just to travel from one place to another and to get in time to every place. It's incredible. Tell me about that. I know it. You practice here, you practice every time. When you're already there, the first time, you go up after many kilometers at that speed of light, 25 feet of light, and you're already there. What was your first think about saying, all right, I'm here, what?
I think when I got to space, my first reaction was the majestic beauty of just simply being in space. It was an unbelievable experience. You're looking out the window. In fact, most astronauts, our favorite thing is to look out the window at the Earth because it's so mesmerizing being able to see the Earth from such a unique perspective. Particularly at night, we turn off all the lights on the space station or the space shuttle. We look out the window and you can see stars like you've never seen them before on Earth. And you realize that we're one just very small planet in this infinite universe, and that's absolutely incredible to think about.
Dave, you are in the NASA. You know what is happening. It's some time ago we hear about that they were already sending people like a tourist to the moon or to the space. I don't know, maybe someday to Mars. But is this already possible? It's going to be already private companies having, I don't know, go to the airport, take a flight to the moon, come back. It's going to be in a near future.
When I was a child, I was 7 years old when I dreamt of becoming an astronaut, and I was told that was impossible. Today, I've flown in space as a government astronaut for the Canadian Space Agency and flying with NASA, and now we have private sector companies that are building private spacecraft that will take citizens into space, and I think that's truly remarkable. I believe the human species is a spacefaring species, and we will go farther in space, we'll stay longer, and one day we'll have humans living and working on the surface of Mars, and that's going to be incredible.
Why in Mars and not in the moon?
Well, moon is first. We'll go back to the moon first, and then we'll go on from there to Mars. So the moon, hopefully by 2024, 2025, we'll see astronauts back working on the surface of the moon, and then maybe by 2035, we'll see humans living and working on the surface of Mars.
Why now they are targeting to Mars and we forget about the moon? Because many times you say, we already went there, but we were there years ago, not so close. We're not going every day to the moon, but people talk about going to Mars, going to Mars, going to Mars. What's happened with colonizing the moon, to be there, to travel just in the space? Why to think about Mars?
You know, the moon is a lot easier to get to. It's only 3 days to be able to get to the moon, and we have...
It looks fantastic. It took me more to get to Israel. All right. 3 days to get to the moon. All right.
Just 3 days to get to the moon, and we have the technology to live and work on the surface of the moon and to create a space station in lunar orbit. So we can do that today, and by doing that we will develop the technology we need to go to Mars. And with today's technology, it's roughly 6 to 7 months to get to Mars. You would stay on Mars 1 Mars year, which is 2 Earth years, and then another 6 to 7 months to come back. So in total, it's roughly a 3-year voyage to be able to go to Mars, a totally different experience than sending humans back to the moon.
And the last question, in all your trips all your trips and everything you have learned about Mars, Earth, is there possibility, or do you have ever find somebody living from other planet?
So one of the greatest scientific questions in history is whether life exists elsewhere in our solar system. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's human life or intelligent life, just simply life.
Or they have or not WhatsApp, that's another question. But
that's right. So I think if you look at this from a statistical perspective, it's highly probable that life exists elsewhere, not only just in our solar system, but on another planet that's very similar to Earth. We call this the Goldilocks zone, because as long as there's a planet that's close enough to a source of energy like a sun, then all of a sudden you've got the perfect criteria for life to be able to exist. So we simply don't know, and that's why we're going forward to explore scientifically to see if life once existed elsewhere in our solar system.
And to finish, give us your best experience like an astronaut flying. It doesn't have to be in the space. Your best experience like an astronaut.
So one of the most memorable experiences for me as a Canadian astronaut was in my second spacewalk. I was riding on the end of the Canadian-built robotic arm, and I'm looking at the Earth behind the space shuttle, and I'm thinking how beautiful our planet is. And I look out at the black, infinite void of space, which to me actually looked somewhat hostile, and I look back at the beauty of this pale blue dot that's our planet, and you realize that the best planet to live on in our solar system is our own planet, the Earth, and we need to take care of it for future generations.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.